So what we're going to do is we're here to expose it, let people tell their story, and let everybody in the public see the horrors of the court system in Suffolk County, New York.
Long Island Backstory.
Hi, I'm Gary Jacobs. Welcome to another edition of Long Island Backstory, where we're filming at the Cablevision Studios, formerly Cablevision, now Altice. It's like putting 2016 when it's 2017. I can't change it. But today I'm totally worked up because I have an amazing guest. This is the second show we did with my next guest. And I'm just so excited to have him. He's got so much to say. And luckily, I'm from Long Island, so I speak fast, and I can get a lot of the stuff in. And Dr. Monty, as he likes to be referred to, speaks fast also, because he spent a lot of time in Brooklyn. What we're going to do on this show is I did a little bit of research, and of course, I've been friends with Dr. Monty for a while on Facebook, and he posts a lot of things on Facebook. And every time I read it, I say, God damn, this guy knows what he's talking about. And it's so, because it's when you're an alienated parent, not everyone gets it. So when you see somebody who gets it, you just really, it's a good feeling that you're not alone in this world. My next guest is an expert on parental alienation. Not only does he know about it, he knows how to combat it and fight it in court. So what we're going to do on today's show is I'm going to read you some of Dr. Weinstein, or Dr. Monty as he likes to be referred to, some of his posts on Twitter and Facebook, and I'm going to ask him to expand upon these. The first one is the war of reunification of family is one of our most important challenges in America. Why is it so important?
Because there are I want to thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to be to this wonderful show. Number one, it's the most important issue in America because we're breaking up the family. Law guardians, court evaluators, family court judges, many of them are breaking up the family. So if there's no reunification, there's the systematic breakup, and that is parental alienation at its forefront.
Now, what happens? I say we're creating a generation without fathers where there's drug violence. If you look at all the kids in jail, the percentage of kids who are raised without a father, I don't know the numbers, I'm not going to quote it, it's high. It's like 60, 70, 80% of kids are raised without a father.
More.
All these mass murderers that you see, I think every one of these mass murderers was raised without a father.
8 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to Rikers Island, where people speak to like convicted felons that didn't see their children. And I was fortunate enough to be let in, and I spoke to these people. All of them were people that committed felonies, and they all grew up in a single family home without a father.
Why were you afraid to say this? It's a fact.
Right. It's the same thing where one of the things that I'm not saying who I voted for, who I didn't vote for, but that's a reality. The reality is these people lost their children. I'm not afraid to say it. They lost the children because of misguided law guardians, bad family court judges, and court evaluators at best, who should be waiting on tables at McDonald's rather than acting as evaluators and taking away children.
My next one is Long Island Backstory. We go to court occasionally. We do most of our shoots in the studio, but occasionally we get a crew together and we go to the courthouse and we try to cover stories at the courthouse. And we get such a hard time sometimes. Problem in Suffolk is we're run by a corrupt chief judge. Imagine the chief judge of Suffolk County, Judge Randall Hemrick, is corrupt. They don't want us seeing what's going on in there. So they do whatever they can to give us a hard time, to keep us out of the courtroom, to make us wait in the hallway. Oh, there's no room, there's security reasons. Now we're getting a little bit better about getting in, but they really made it clear. They do intimidation. They have court officers following us around like we're some sort of criminals. They don't do it to the mainstream media because they won't report the truth of what's going on like we do. But they do everything they can. They say, there's a child involved, there's this involved. It's supposed to be an open court. One of your quotes, every court should be open, and we should not have children we should not use children as an excuse to close the courtroom. An open court is the only way for judicial accountability. And let's start evaluating the mental health of family court judges. That's powerful.
I believe that, number one, there will be total corruption without fluidity. Courts must be open, family courts in particular. The youth were used as excuses from the time of Plato and Aristotle and Socrates as an excuse to like do a job on people. Courts have to be open. Without courts being open, there's no accountability, there's corruption, there's disgusting decisions, and these decisions are not in time and space and along the line, they last forever. You cannot allow in a closed kangaroo court decisions to be made which will preclude you from a relationship with your children.
I always think it's amazing that we put people in jail here on Long Island without a jury. We have people who they sentence to jail. One person, usually not even a judge, it's a, I forget what it is, but it's not a judge.
Magistrate.
Yeah, a magistrate. And what they do is they hear the case and then they can't put somebody in jail, so then they have to have a judge oversee it. They go to the judge, they rubber stamp the magistrate, they put the person in jail without a jury. There's a reason that we have a jury before we put people in jail. The second part was about mental health. And I find it ironic that if you work in Home Depot, you have to get a mental health evaluation and get drug tested. But yet you can be a judge here in New York, never get mentally evaluated, never get drug tested, and we all know judges that we say, that son of a bitch is crazy you got. And there's no evaluation. How do you have this?
Well, I'm not pro evaluations, but evaluations should be an everyday affair with family court judges, predicated on the fact that I've been in so many courts, and I could say categorically at least 7%, and this was my own research, really are people that are psychotic or borderline or bipolar. We must evaluate many of the judges because they are making decisions which affect our children's lives.
Now here's something I read about on Facebook, our constitutional rights to see a child. And you put in one of your quotes, parents undergoing custodial disputes have an inherent right to see their children without government interference. Now, what do you mean inherent right?
Right, people have a First Amendment right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And hey guys, if they're going to take away your kids, how could you be happy? What are they, for real? This is more of a battle than going into Vietnam or going into Iraq. And I'm a veteran, and my kids are, veterans, and I could go on and on and on. And I support the United States, and I support our battle internationally. However, we have a battle here. Because what is a life? How can we have a happy life if they remove your kids? And removing the kids on unadulterated horseshit by mediocre mental health practitioners. It must stop at the point of demonstration and at the point of going to jail if need be.
So people all the time say, oh, I have a constitutional right to it. But to me, the judges just laugh it off. But do you still most of the judges are going to laugh it off, but do you recommend that somebody would go to court and say, look, I have a constitutional right, Your Honor, and at least get it on the record that judge is violating? Then they may not do anything about it, but at least get on the record that they're violating your right. Because you have to defend your own right.
You have to get it on the record, regardless if they do or don't. We believe in the Constitution. We try to believe in the Constitution, and what they do is try to preclude anyone from making a record. And you must, at all costs, make a record, because then if you without a record, you have nothing to appeal.
Absolutely. The best parent is one who is motivated to have a relationship with his or her children and spends time with them to form a bond and a foundation. A lot of times, people come to me, I felt the same way. I was being turned into an ATM. I literally felt like I was being turned in. That's all I was.
Well, you were.
I was being turned into and it's the worst, disgusting feeling to be turned into an ATM. And I would say, listen, and people talk about, oh, they have to give $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 because they need to support their kids and the lifestyle. I know a lot of wealthy people. I wish I was one of them, but I'm not, but I know a lot of them. You know what? Somebody having money doesn't make you happy. I have a lot of friends who are middle class and on the lower end, and they are excellent parents, and guess what? Their kids are happy. They become successful. Money, in my opinion, doesn't equate to excellent child raising or to happiness. Right. Being a loving parent does.
Okay, this is a self-serving statement. Regardless of my fights with my wife, not my wife, present wife, other wives, etc., I believe it is very important to spend time with your children. And that's the reality. I brought my little baby here with us, and my kids run from 13 to 50, and grandchildren and animals and turtles and,
You're an animal lover.
and cats and everything running around my house.
Right. This is very important because a lot of people, I think, make this mistake, including me. You said papers in support of a motion to reverse custody should always have an affidavit of an expert in mental health and parental alienation syndrome, or the court will just base their decision on he said, she said. You need an expert to prove abuse, neglect, or PAS, parental alienation syndrome. So you're saying to actually put this in your motion papers right at the beginning.
I'm saying you must put that in your motion papers, otherwise it becomes a pissing match. He said and she said.
And then they usually say there's a truth in the middle, which gets me nuts because
truth
sometimes there's no truth in the middle. Sometimes there's an alienator and a person being alienated.
There are alienators, and there are more alienators once you get attorneys. And the attorneys promote alienation because they are really creeps, many of them. And they want alienation because they win even though they lose.
Plenty of money involved in that.
Right.
Yeah. Courts need to be educated about parental alienation syndrome by independent expert witnesses who are not a party to the action and are not tied into each city's cottage industry of keeping children away from a parent. The concept of one parent being better than the other, predicated upon a psychological test, is not only unscientific, but totally immoral explanation point.
Right, because both parents should have a right to see their children. How many judges on the East who grew up in the East Side, Italians, Jews, other people, they were smacked around, this and that. If they did that today, they wouldn't have a mother or father. It is very important for a child to be exposed to two parents, even though one may be idiosyncratic. That is not to say that we have to be abusive, but you have to be who you are, and you can't let some little, I have to watch what I say on the air.
Well, we could bleep it out. We got a lot of bleeps already.
All right. You can't have some little idiot that just goes into a classroom and comes out and says, well, he can't see his kid. That's all bullshit. You have a right to see your kids, and if they don't allow it, you sit by his office and you fight to the end. As I did and mentioned in the other film, that when I was forced to take a psychological test, they said, oh, you have some paranoid ideation, we have to watch you. And I went over to that guy who's a psychologist, and who I beat in cases, named Dr. Schultz. And years later, when I was testifying, I said, you said I have paranoid ideation? Well, hey, guess what? If I hit you over the head with this bat, can I use your assessment? You have to have a little guts. You have to pass the line. You have to be there, and you have to be in their face.
So, but one of the first part was you said the courts need to be educated. The judges don't like expert witnesses coming in, and many times they'll say, I know about alienation. I've been a judge for 10 years. I don't need any experts. I've heard them all.
That's bullshit.
Do you still bring it in and put it on the record?
You still bring it on the record because there are people that totally will support you. And what I do is I have a network of people, Dr. Burnett, who's the chairman of psychiatry at Vanderbilt, and other people who testify, who support my thesis that alienation does in fact exist, and it scientifically could be proven. I could sit here for 3 days talking about the validity of parental alienation. I'd rather not do that because I want to get to some major conclusionary points.
The only reason why parental alienation is not recognized by psychiatric boards is because they have a vested monetary interest in keeping the conflict going. They get rich on other people's misery rather than reunification therapy, which should be their mission.
Their mission should be to reunite families, children, mothers, fathers, with their children. Everyone should have accessibility to their children unless you're totally psychotic. And anyone that says differently is making and projecting their political view of a single family home. And there should not be single family homes if they're two parents. And that's my thesis.
You and I have had this conversation before, but one of the things that I've noticed is that besides the general bias towards fathers, there is a huge bias towards doctors, policemen, and veterans. Veterans really bothers me almost more than other people go to serve their country. And as I was telling Dr. Monty, I was helping a veteran who was a frontline machine gunner in Iraq and said, I would rather be there getting shot at than be in Suffolk County Family Court and have to deal with my daughter being taken away from me. So, and my feeling is that the judge wants to say, hey, I have a lot of these people do have judges, a lot of them, not all of them, have psychological issues of power. They're narcissists, and they see, hey, you think you're better than me because you have a gun? Well, I got this black robe, and it's a lot more powerful. So I read this quote, and I said, wow, I guess Dr. Monty is onto the same thing as me. It's not just me who noticed it. He said, we must be vigilant to protect rights of our veterans who valiantly fight for our country and then come home to a court system that precludes them from accessibility to their children in too many custodial disputes. This is unwanted government interference. It must stop. I see, and then I put my notes that I see a bias towards veterans.
It's true. It's true. Veterans come back and they get screwed. It's amazing that, they don't revolt right now.
I agree too.
It's just totally amazing. And as I told the family court judge years ago, she said, oh, you run groups, and I heard they're radical. I said, Judge, if I didn't run these support groups, you would be in jeopardy, because people have a chance to ventilate, and have a mental catharsis in the group rather than go to your home and burn it down. And we did have a demonstration in front of our home where the FBI was called, but I got out. That's a whole other story.
So, Dr. Monty, a lot of us watching the show and Americans for Legal Reform, we advocate for change. I personally believe in shared parenting. It takes all this off the table. I know nobody wants it because then we don't fill the jails with people who are behind on their child support. We don't get our Title IV demanding for the state. The law guardians are all out of a job. The lawyers, family lawyers, are most of them are out of a job. So nobody wants it to change. We mentioned Monty Weinstein in the assembly, who's a roadblock for everything. Thank God Sheldon Silver's gone. What needs to change, Dr. Monty? What needs to change in the court system? And number two, how do we change it?
We change it by existentially not buying into the crap that's being sold. We need legislators that realize the importance of fathers and mothers and accessibility to the children. And that's a major point. And we have to spend as much time with the children as possible. I want to introduce my daughter, Maura, who's comes with me all over and now is listening to her favorite show with degenerates.
This is what we know what needs to change. Go ahead and lobby and fight, but in the meantime, you got to fight for yourself so these cases get overturned. Your fees, are they affordable to the average working class person?
Yes, I have a sliding scale. And hey guys, I did a lot of pro bono work.
Don't say that. You're going to be swamped with calls from my viewers.
I used to well, one of your speakers is what I want to say. I went in for him for 2 years, and he won his kids, and he went to the Supreme Court, and I testified for him, Sonny Sutherland, and he'll tell you what I'm all about.
But I appreciate that you're coming. You took the time to come on the show and to do lectures, and your website's informative, and you're very free to give out. And I know you're passionate about this because you couldn't do it. If you weren't, you would give up.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to be here. And, I really love this place. It's great.
Yeah, and we really appreciate what you're doing. How could somebody get in touch with you and get information?
All right. My number is, well, first of all, I'm on the web, www.familyunity.com. I'm on Facebook with Gary Jacobs. And if you ask who is Dr. Monty Weinstein and Google me, I'm all over the place. So I've been doing this a long time. Also, I'm coming out with a book on my webpage. My administrator is Vicki Taylor, and she will tell you all about what I do if anyone's interested.
Just to show what a loving father Dr. Monty is. He has 5 children. When I asked him to come out to the show today, he said, I'd like my daughter Maura to come out with me, and I want her to see what's going on, and maybe he's sort of mentoring her, although after seeing the misery of court, I don't think she's going to want to get into family law, but she's a sweet person, an animal lover. And next I'd like to, I just want to take a second to introduce Maura for taking the time to drive out here from Brooklyn and sit through this. Maura, welcome to the program. Okay, so Maura, welcome, and thank you for coming out from Brooklyn. So what do you think? Your father's famous, and I'm sure you overhear a lot of these conversations, but as a teenager who's being raised with two parents, What is your feeling? You must know a lot of people who were divorced. You know, do you see the tragedy in being raised, you know, without a parent in your life?
Yeah, I have siblings who, my half-sisters and half-brother, who my dad was their parent, obviously, and so, but I'm proud of them because my mom is a judge, and she fights, and she was a lawyer before, and now he's, expert.
But you know what? I think it's interesting. A lot of people say people should practice what they preach, and your father does because he's, as you said, you have half brothers and half sisters. So your father still managed to pull everybody together, and he was involved in all of their lives, and it shows because they're all successful now, and I believe that's because they had your father in their lives all the time. And I know you're very smart, and you're doing well in school, and you're very musically inclined. So when people say practice what you preach, and as your father had said on one of the shows, one of the psychiatrists said he was eccentric with some kind of ideations or some fancy psychological terms. But guess what? You guys turned out great. You think his father's a good father?
Yeah.
And you must be proud. Do you realize what he does, that he reunifies and saves people's lives? Do you realize the enormity of it, or is it too complex at this point?
When I do meet the clients or any people involved, they always tell me that they have the greatest dad. Yeah. So, and I say thank you. And
yeah, he really is. You know, I think coming from a loving mother and father, it may be hard, but I'm sure you have friends who are divorced, and you see how hard it is for children going through divorce. Let me tell you, divorce is bad, but if both parents are in their lives, I think people can get over it. You know, kids are resilient, but having a parent removed, and you meet a lot of these fathers, I think, who come to your dad, and you must see the pain that they are and how much they miss their children.
Yeah. Luckily, fortunately, I didn't go through this, but I do believe that with the parents' help that they can get through it.
Great. Thanks a lot more. Thanks for coming out to Long Island. I really appreciate you coming out. And we're expecting good things from you. Hopefully you'll follow in your mom and dad's footsteps, because they're both doing amazing things to change the world for the positive, which they're really, you know what, no money, you can't put a price tag on what the two of them are doing to make the world a better place. I'm Gary Jacobs, and thank you for joining us at Long Island Backstory. We'll see you next week.
Long Island Backstory. Chief Correspondent Gary Jacobs is uncovering the truth on Long Island. The family court system. Red light cameras. Corruption in local politics. The heroin epidemic. Corrupt judges. At Long Island Backstory, we uncover the truth that the Cablevision news monopoly won't dare touch. We uncover the details you won't see on News 12 or in Newsday. We are local independent media at its best. Long Island Backstory, available on Public Access TV and on YouTube.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
Todd's a great guy. I mean, look at him. What a sweetheart. Attaboy. Wait, Todd, what are you doing? How totally selfish and un-Todd-like of you. Come on, Todd. Come on, man.
Long Island Backstory.